News coming out of Iran here in the last few minutes. The Iranian President Rouhani saying that the United States cannot be trusted and that the U.S. must prove that it's willing to resolve problems through talks. All that comes as the Iranians continue to protest with these new U.S. sanctions looming. Let's bring in Peter Brookes, former Bush 43 defense official on Iran. Well, I guess we can't be trusted, Peter, say the Iranians, before the sanctions are put in place. I'm not sure if we should dignify that or even talk about it at all. So what do you make of what the president is doing here, sanctions-wise? I guess he wants Iran to come back to the table and maybe negotiate a better Iranian deal. Is this the right way to do it?
Well, it's certainly one way. And Iranians are always tough. They can be intransigent. They've been intransigent. In fact, I was a little encouraged by what you just told me about the president saying about coming back to the table, because a week or so ago they said they wouldn't come back to the table when the president said he would meet with them without conditions. They said, well, come back into the nuclear deal and then we'll talk to you. So that may be progress. I didn't get a chance to see what he said, but based on how you gave it to me, that could be progress. And this is just the first shot across the bow, Connell. Yep. This affects things like aviation, autos, currency issues, but the real heavy sanctions come next month on November 4th when it goes after the energy sector, which it will really hurt Iran, because Iran, in many ways, it relies on its energy sector for its government coffers.
Yeah, he didn't say much, by the way, today. I mean, it was a very short appearance. The White House just sent out a picture, but I think people reading into it are saying that, hey, because of what happened, as you pointed out, with all that talk about whether there be a meeting or not, now you hammer them with the sanctions, and maybe they have no choice, but because their economy, they're in pretty bad shape, right, in Iran? Yeah,
absolutely. There's a lot of social unrest, too, which really worries repressive governments. There are food shortages. There's a tremendous inflation, a lack of jobs for young people. So, yeah, there's a lot of pressure. And this is when the sanctions were lifted. Now, when you put them back on, it's going to be even harder. But Iran's international adventurism is eating up a lot of their capital as well. They're involved in Yemen, Afghanistan, Syria. So this is a good way to bring them back to the table to talk about the shortcomings in the Obama-era nuclear deal.
Now, what do you think, real quick? I want to get you on Venezuela as well, but what do you think of the president maybe sitting down with the Iranian president? I know the White House did make it clear today that he's still at least open to that if the situation was right. But is that, in any circumstance, a good idea?
Well, I mean, you've seen that with Kim Jong-un. You've seen that with Putin. If this can protect and advance American interests, I think we should be open to it. But once again, it has to protect and advance American interests. And I think we'll look at the situation at the moment. It would be, once again, historic. But, once again, there's a lot of heavy lifting in dealing with whether you're dealing with the Russians or dealing with the North Koreans or the Iranians. So there's a lot of work to do besides a meeting at the highest levels.
Yeah, history's not all. Just because something's historic doesn't necessarily make it positive. But, we'll see how this one plays out. I want to talk to you about Venezuela, because that was crazy over the weekend. This assassination plot apparently against the president. There he is, Nicolas Maduro, involving a drone. I know the United States government has denied any involvement in this, but things are obviously a mess in Venezuela. What's the significance?
Well, similar in some ways to Iran when you talk about the social pressures. The economic situation is terrible. We've had 2 million people leave there in the last 2 years because of lack of economic opportunity and shortages, things like medicine, things like food. We've had inflation is, 1,500%. Some people say it may go over 1 million by the end of the year. So tremendous social pressures there, but also, and it's all self-imposed because of the economic policies, just like in Iran. And I'm not convinced, Connell, that this was an assassination plot. I think there's a lot of scapegoating going on here by the Venezuelans. They're blaming the Colombians as well, the United States, the usual suspects when it comes to anything going bad. But this is self-imposed economic suicide on the part of the Venezuelan government, a country that in the past had been one of the richest governments or richest countries in Latin America.
Well, because speaking of oil, I mean, they have it there in Venezuela, and they have the resources to be a rich country. But maybe the bottom line here is socialism is not the best economic policy out there. I mean, that's just the takeaway, right?
That's right. Just like socialism, a statist government like this without free markets, like in Iran, I don't want to make them exactly the same, but the fact is you can see the same sort of situation. Mismanagement, corruption, and socialist policies will undermine tremendous promise and found, for example, in the energy sector.
Peter, good to see you. Always good to have you.